All right, let's just dive right into this. Welcome to this explainer on a topic that literally touches every single one of us, every single day. Today we're unpacking the art of persuasion, but we're looking at it from a deeply psychological perspective. We're going to explore how our minds are constantly, subtly guided by unseen forces. And honestly, how understanding these forces can completely flip the way you interact with the world.
To kick things off, I want you to ask yourself a super practical question. Have you ever wondered why you agreed to buy that $95 sweater right after dropping a massive chunk of change on a brand new suit? Or, maybe you found yourself volunteering for a huge task you had totally sworn you were going to say no to. Well, if you have, do not worry. You are definitely not alone. You've just experienced the subtle, behind-the-scenes tactics that skilled persuaders use to steer human behavior.
So here's our roadmap for today. We'll start off by identifying these hidden forces, and then we'll break down 4 specific psychological tactics: the power of comparison, the dance of concession, the trap of commitment, and finally, the pull of social proof. Then we'll wrap up by looking at how recognizing these forces actually gives us freedom. We're going to scale all the way from everyday retail tricks up to some really profound life-or-death societal phenomena.
Okay, first up, the hidden forces, psychological tactics.
Before we get into the nitty-gritty strategies, we really need to understand the playing field here. The absolute crucial point is that these are not just random cheap parlor tricks. Skilled persuaders are exploiting universal cognitive shortcuts. See, our brains are bombarded with so much information constantly, right? So we rely on these psychological heuristics, basically mental shortcuts, just to make quick decisions. Persuaders know exactly how these shortcuts work, and they build environments where our natural instincts just seamlessly guide us into doing exactly what they want, usually without us ever realizing it's even happening.
Let's move on to our first specific tactic, the power of comparison, the contrast principle.
In cognitive psychology, the contrast principle is a huge fundamental rule. It's basically the tendency of the human mind to evaluate an object relative to whatever stimulus we encountered right before it. The big takeaway here is that we almost never look at anything in a vacuum. If the second thing we see is totally different from the first, our brains actually exaggerate that difference.
Sales professionals turn this little brain glitch into a highly effective tool. Take real estate, for example. Over on the left, you've got what agents call the setup house. They will deliberately walk you through this incredibly unattractive, overpriced, poorly maintained dump first. Then they take you to the property on the right, the target property that they actually want you to buy. After walking through that awful setup house, the target property doesn't just look okay. By comparison, it suddenly looks like an absolute dream home. It pushes you right toward a sale.
And this brings us right back to that opening question about retail shopping. Think about it. A salesperson is actively trained to present the extreme anchor first, like that $495 suit on the left. Once you agree to that, your brain just sort of accepts a really high price point. So suddenly, when they casually show you the item on the right, a $95 sweater, it doesn't feel like almost $100 anymore. In contrast to that expensive suit, it feels like a super modest minor add-on. Your brain was totally tricked just by the order in which things were shown to you. All right, next section, the dance of concession, rejection, then retreat. Now we're moving from simple retail shopping into the wild world of interpersonal negotiation. This is widely known as the door-in-the-face technique, and it relies heavily on the social norm of reciprocity. Here's how it works. Step 1. The persuader hits you with an extreme request they know for a fact you're going to reject. Step 2. After you inevitably say no, they back down and present the much smaller request, which, surprise, is the one they wanted all along. Because they appear to have made a concession by backing off, a powerful psychological pressure bubbles up inside you for step 3. You literally feel compelled to reciprocate their concession by agreeing to that smaller request.
There's a famous 1975 study by Robert Cialdini that brilliantly shows how well this works. Researchers directly asked college students to take juvenile delinquents on a day trip to the zoo. As you'd expect, compliance was super low. But when they first asked students to volunteer as counselors for 2 whole years, a massive request that absolutely everyone refused, and then they retreated to just asking about the zoo trip, compliance actually tripled. Just by asking for a hard no first, they got 3 times as many yeses.
And here is the most brilliant, ironic part of the whole thing. People who get subjected to this rejection then retreat tactic actually end up feeling more responsible and far more satisfied with the final outcome.
Why? Because they genuinely believe they forced the persuader to back down from that huge first request. So they attribute the agreement to their own sharp negotiation skills, completely oblivious to the fact that they've just been played.
Let's look at our third tactic, the trap of commitment, lowballing.
Lowballing is basically persisting with a decision even after the initial super attractive terms of the agreement disappear. Think about it for a second. Logically, if the whole reason you agreed to a deal is suddenly yanked away, you should just walk away, right? But human beings, we often don't. Let's break down exactly why our minds do this.
Let's walk through this classic car sales scenario. Step 1. You get this highly appealing offer, say an unusually low price on a car, and you say, "Yep, I'll take it." You commit. Step 2 is where the magic happens internally. Your mind immediately starts building justifications to support your choice. You tell yourself, "Wow, the car is so safe, the color is perfect, it's super reliable." Then step 3, the salesperson comes back out, looking apologetic, and says there was a calculation error or their manager just wouldn't approve the price. The original incentive, that amazing low price, is completely gone. But look at step 4. Your decision remains stable, and you end up buying it anyway at the higher price.
To really visualize why you don't just walk away, think about this awesome metaphor from Robert Cialdini. He points out that the initial commitment develops new supporting legs. Even when the original support is removed, the belief structure remains stable. Basically, by the time the salesperson pulls that amazing price out from under you, your brain has already constructed a whole table of brand new legs, the safety, the color, the reliability, to hold up your decision. The deal completely changed, but your internal commitment was already cemented in place.
All right, moving on to our final tactic, the pull of social proof, the Werther effect. This is where we take our explainer out of the commercial world and into some profound societal phenomena. At its core, social proof is a survival mechanism. When we are uncertain about how to behave, we naturally look to what others are doing for guidance. But this instinct has a really dark side. The Werther effect is named after Johann Wolfgang von Goethe's 18th century novel, The Sorrows of Young Werther, which featured a protagonist who takes his own life. Astoundingly, the publication of this book reportedly triggered a tragic wave of copycat suicides all across Europe. People were literally looking to a cultural narrative for behavioral cues.
And this isn't just some old 18th century myth either. Striking empirical findings from sociologist David Phillips in 1974 actually proved this. He analyzed what happened right after highly publicized front-page news reports of suicides, and the data is just intensely specific. When the news reported a single suicide, there was an immediate measurable spike in fatal airplane and car accidents involving only one victim. When the news reported a murder-suicide, there was a spike in accidents involving multiple fatalities. It is a terrifying showcase of copycat behaviors disguised as accidents, driven entirely by the subconscious pull of social proof.
Okay, let's move to our final section, freedom through recognition, escaping the tactics.
Let's guide ourselves out of those dark statistics and into an empowering resolution. How do we escape these deeply ingrained tactics? Well, first, we have to remember the shortcuts we've decoded today: our tendency for relative comparison, our strict adherence to the rule of reciprocity, our internal need for consistency after we make a commitment, and our instinct to seek social cues. Remember, these are not malicious flaws in your brain. They are universal, totally natural mechanisms that help you navigate a wildly complex world. They only become traps when persuaders weaponize them against you.
And that brings us to our ultimate takeaway. The real, true value of understanding these persuasive tactics is not about living in constant paranoia or trying to stubbornly resist every single form of influence. Rather, it's about creating a brief pause between the trigger and your reaction. When a salesperson offers you that unbelievably low price or asks for a massive favor right out of the gate, your knowledge of these tactics buys you a critical 2 seconds of awareness. And it is in that brief, vital pause that you can actually assert your human autonomy.
So, I want to leave you with this provocative thought to carry with you today. Will you use that brief pause to reclaim your autonomy the next time a bargain comes your way? These unseen forces are always operating in the background, but now you have the spotlight to actually see them. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking questions, keep looking for the structure behind the pitch, and I'll see you next time.